Hey y'all, it's Thursday, so let's chat. So, I have a question for y'all because I was talking to this guy and he told me that he don't remember his first kiss. And I was like, how you don't remember your first kiss? And I'm really curious if this is like a girl thing, like a female thing or what. Because I remember, or I guess it would be more of a male thing because he the one that don't remember. I remember my first kiss. I remember where I was at. I remember who it was with. I remember the time of day it was. All of that. Just like I remember the first time I did the do. Like, I remember where I was at. I remember who I was with, what day it was. I remember all of that. And so, I'm talking to him about it, and I'm like, what do you mean you don't remember your first kiss? And he says, y'all, that he was like in elementary. He was like, I was so young when it happened. And I was like, wait, what? And he was like, yeah, we used to do a lot of stuff back then. And I was like, what do you mean you used to do a lot of stuff? I don't know what that is, y'all. I was like, what do you mean you used to do a lot of stuff? Like, what? And he was like, we used to be doing a lot of stuff when we was younger. And I was like, okay. So then I asked him, I'm like, so when did you lose your virginity? And he was in elementary when that happened too. And so I was like, wait, I said, somebody took advantage of you? And he was like, no. He said it was with someone that was my age as well. I said, so you took advantage of somebody's daughter? You took advantage of somebody's daughter? What? Wait a minute. And he was like, no, she wanted to do it just like I wanted to do it. And I was like, okay. I was like, that's crazy to me. I said, in elementary? And he was like, yeah. I was like, it was sometime when I was in elementary. Because he can't even remember, y'all, when exactly it happened, who it was with or nothing. And I'm just like, what? And he was like, I had so many experiences when I was in elementary. So I can't remember which girl it was or what. And I was thinking to myself, I said, is this normal? Is this normal? So I asked some other guys, like some ones that be at the store and stuff. I'm asking them, I'm like, hey, you remember your first kiss? You remember your first time? And some of them was like, yeah, of course I remember, and they shared their stories with me and stuff. But then there was a lot of them, more than, like, it just makes me uncomfortable how many really, y'all, they really did not remember. He was like, no. Like, there's this one guy from Mississippi, and I remember him telling me a story. And he was like, yeah, I was probably, I want to say he was like 6 or 7. He was like 7. No, he was like 7 or 8, he told me, when he lost his. And he was like, in the country, that's how we get down, in the country. And I was just like, what? Like, I was in the 7th grade when I had my first kiss. And it was with my first love of my life. It was after track practice behind the stadium at Carver Middle School. I will never forget that day. And it was with my first love, which was Richard. And I can't forget it. I mean, of course I know what I was wearing because it was after track practice. I had on my gym clothes, but it was like, how do you forget that? And I remember my first time, doing the do. It was on a Sunday. I had went home. My mom then wasn't there. So his mom was like, okay, well, I have something to do, so I'm just going to drop you by him where he is and see. And he was driving at this time, y'all. He had a little old truck. And so she was like, he can bring you back home or whatever. I'm going to just drop you with him, and then, he can bring you back home or whatever. And I was like, okay, that's fine. Even though I got to hang out with all these boys, that's fine. And I remember like it was yesterday. Like, I remember it was like it was yesterday. We were at the park. They was playing ball and all that stuff. I remember we went to get some snacks from Quick Trip, and he always knew my favorite stuff, y'all. And I remember he went in, he got my stuff, he brought it out, and all that stuff. Like, I remember that day to 10. Then I remember when he was like, you know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna say exactly what he said, because that's like my intimate memory, but he was just like, like, do you want to do that today? And I was like, because we had been talking about it, and we went together real bad since I was in the 6th grade. So he was older than me. When I was in 6th grade, he was in 8th grade. I still remember the first day I met my first love, y'all. I remember the first day I met him at the bus stop. Like, I remember the first day I seen him. Let me say that, because the first day I seen him wasn't the first day I met him. But I remember the first day I seen him, and we were on the bus stop at Alcott. I think that's the name of that school, is Alcott. It might not be Alcott. I can't remember, but I can picture the school. I want to say it's Alcott, though. And so I didn't know anybody, because remember I told y'all in a story time a long time ago about how when I went to this middle school, I only knew one other person. It was me and it was another guy from my elementary school. We were the only two who went to school. So, but his mama or somebody probably, he might have rode with his grandma, because his grandma was the cafeteria lady. So I don't know how he was getting to school, but for me, I had to take this bus. And so I remember walking to the bus stop or whatever, and I always had a book. So the whole time I'm even walking to the bus, I'm reading my book, y'all, and I'm looking at my book and everything. And so I can remember standing there waiting on the bus and reading my book, and then I hear these guys, and they're harmonizing Brenda's Got a Baby, right? And it was like the most beautiful thing I ever heard. I don't know, it's so weird. And so I turn, I look up, and I turn, and I'm just listening to him. And then one of them break out, and he's like, I hear Brenda's got a baby, but Brenda's barely got a name. A damn shame. The girl can hardly spell her name. That's not our problem. That's up to Brenda's family. But let me tell you how it affects our whole community. And he's going, and I'm like, and it was Richard, y'all. And I was like, oh my God. Like, so I peeped Shawty. I peeped him. I was like, okay, I like what they got going or whatever. I was like, that's cool. But back then, y'all, I was the type that I save face a lot. So even though I thought like, oh my God, like that's cool, like I'm digging what they doing, I'm digging what they putting down, I would have never let them know that. And so like I was watching them, but with a poker face. And then I just went back to read my book. And so I think he went a few days, and so it was sometime during that week that he sent Deracia, a girl that I ended up meeting. It was like probably the next day after I had met her. I made friends with her like the first day or whatever, because she was a huge extrovert. Okay, I was not. She was. And so I remember she was like, oh, you ride my bus, and and like she would act like she just knew me. And I was like, yeah, we ride the same bus. And she was like, yeah, that's my friend, telling people that's my friend. And I'm like, excuse me. I'm like, girl, I ain't your friend. I don't even know you. We just ride the same bus. But that's how she was. And so she was one of the first people I met, first day of school, whatever. And so the next day when I get on the bus, because I was a loner, I sat by myself. I didn't talk to anybody. I just read the whole ride there. I read the whole ride home, and that was it. And so she came over and she was like, hey, my friend think you cute. And I was like, okay, my friend. And she said something about like, my friend want to know if he can get your number or something like that. I said, well, why don't you tell your friend to come talk to me? Why your friend ain't come talk to me himself? And I just went back to read my book. And so she got up. And then next thing you know, he walks over and he's like, can I sit here? And I looked up and I was like, ooh, it's Tupac 2.0. I was like, oh, it's you. I didn't know who. She didn't say who it was. She just said my friend. So I didn't know who it was. But because I'm already impressed, I already like you. I already like your energy. I'm like, yeah. I was like, yeah, it's fine. And I moved my feet. Because I used to put my feet in the seat so wouldn't nobody sit next to me. And so I just kept reading my book. He sat down or whatever. I guess he assumed that I was going to immediately talk to him because he sat in my seat, but I didn't. And I just kept reading my book. Didn't look up, didn't make eye contact or nothing. And so after school, like the whole ride to school, y'all, we did not talk. We didn't say one thing. The only thing he said was, can he sit there? I said, yeah. That was it. So then after school, I go to sit down or whatever. I'm not expecting him to come back to the seat, y'all. And he was like, are you going to move your feet so I can sit down? And I looked and I was like, yeah, I guess. And so I just moved my feet and I just read. So for the first couple of days, y'all, he didn't say nothing to me. I didn't say nothing to him. We didn't even exchange names or nothing. I just read. I would sit there and read. He would just sit there and then he would talk to his little friends and stuff. Sometimes he would be like working on work and stuff like that. But for the most part, he was clowning with his friends, okay? And they was doing their thing. And I would just sit there. And every now and then I might chuckle and laugh because they might say or do something that I thought was funny or whatever. And so at the end of the week, he finally says to me on our ride home, he was like, what are you reading? And I held it up and I was like, can't you read? Because the way I would sit, y'all, my back would be to the window and my feet would be towards him. And he would sit at the end of my feet so he could see the book. So I'm like, you can see what I'm reading. Like, can't you read? And he was like, why are you so mean? And I was like, am I mean? I was like, I don't think I'm mean. You just asked me a very ignorant question. Y'all, that's how I was that hard of a person. And I had to learn how to like break that down. But I was like, you just asked me a very ignorant question. You can clearly see what I'm reading. I was like, you would have done better if you had just asked me, do I like the book? I said, you can see what book I'm reading. So you asking me what book I'm reading, it was pointless. It was a pointless question. And he was like, well, maybe I just wanted to talk to you because you never talk. You just sit here and read the whole time. And I was like, oh, well, you see what I'm reading, you know. And so then he asked me, he was like, well, do you like the book? And I was like, yeah. And then we started talking about it. He was like, yeah, I can't remember if he said I gotta start reading more or something like that. Something stupid. It was something stupid. But that's how he broke the ice. And so then he would be the only person I would talk to on the bus. Like every now and then Doracia would come over. She'd be like, oh, what y'all doing over here? Oh, da, da, da. But it was never, you know, nothing like that. And so then as time went on, as we shared seats, because apparently my seat became our seat, we would just talk a little bit more and more and more, whatever. Over time, we talk about different stuff and stuff, you know. And so that's how we met, you know. So I remember even all of that. Like, I remember the first day we met. I remember what I was wearing that first day of school because I thought I was too cute. Okay, I thought I was too cute. I had this little yellow flower top and bottom set. It was yellow with red flowers with like little green leaves like on it, y'all. With these pink little bedazzled sandals, and it had a little pink in it too. Y'all, and I thought I was it, okay? I love that outfit. When I put that outfit on, you couldn't tell me nothing. Do you hear me? So I remember what I was wearing and everything the first day. And the crazy thing is, I remember us having a conversation and him telling me, he was like, yeah, I still remember when I first saw you. And I was like, what? He was like, and he told me, and I was like, no, you don't. And he told me, y'all, he was like, yeah, you was wearing that dress. And I was like, it's not a dress, it's a top and a bottom. But he described it to the T. And he was like, and you had on those pink flip-flops. They got the little jewels on there. And I was like, you really remember? And he was like, yeah. And it's crazy, y'all, because you know how they be like, puppy love, puppy love, puppy love, or whatever. But I feel like that love is like really the purest love. Like in all my years as I have gone on through life, you know, I really feel like, y'all, that was the purest love, because it was like no expectations of one another. It was just two souls connecting and bonding, and you know, it was just a beautiful thing. And even that whole, because we end up, y'all, our story went on throughout when I was in college. Okay, we be on again, off again, on again, off again, even through college, even through when I got engaged to my daughter's dad. And I moved here to Texas, y'all, he came down here behind me, and he was trying to get me, like, you know, to connect with him. I'm gonna say that, to connect with him. And I was like, no, I'm engaged now, I can't do that. And he was like, yeah, all right, just make sure you stand on that. And I was like, what? Like, you might be my first love, sir, but I gave you the opportunity for us to do it right. And basically, he didn't say he didn't want to, because he said he did, but something ended up, I found out he had a girl pregnant. That's what it was. So when we was like, we had talked or whatever, and y'all, I'm in college at this time, and we were like, yeah, you know, we finally gonna do it right, do it the right way. And you know, we grown now, we not kids now, so let's do that. And so, you know, we had a whole conversation about doing better. We're adults now, you know, so we should do better and all this other stuff, right? So one day I'm hanging out with him or whatever, and my younger cousin texts me and tell me that his ex, which was a girl that had came in between us, is pregnant. And so I was like, oh, what? And so I tell him, I say, babe, I say, or I didn't call him babe. I used to call him babe. I probably called him his nickname. I was like, Scoot, because that's one of his nicknames, Scooter. I said, you know Brittany pregnant? And I'm sitting in the bedroom on the bed, y'all, and he's across the hall in the bathroom, and both doors are open, and so we're talking or whatever. And so I seen the message, and I was like, babe. Or I didn't call him. I know I didn't call him babe, because I never used to call anybody babe. That's like, as I got older type of thing, I start calling people babe. But I was like, you know Brittany pregnant? And y'all, he didn't even stop what he was doing. He didn't hiccup. He didn't do nothing. And he was just like, yeah, she pregnant by me. It was World War III up in that motherfucker. Y'all, he kept trying to contain me. He was like, stop. I'm like, no, you got this bitch pregnant. Like, I was so mad, because that girl didn't really care about him. She did not really care about him at all. And I still stand on that to this day. To this day, I stand on that. And so I'm like, why would you be having a baby with her? And you talking about you want to work things out with me, and you want to do it the right way and all this other stuff. And, you know, we just did what we just did and all this other stuff. And you already got a baby on the way. You think I'm about to be a baby mama? You think I'm about to, I said a baby mama. You think I'm about to be pregnant with your child while she pregnant with your child? You think, like, it just, a lot just happened all at once. And so then he tell me afterwards, he was like, he sent me a text message, because I left. I ended up leaving because I was hot. I was so hot, y'all. I left my necklace. I never got my necklace back. Now that I think about it, I never even got my necklace back. And it was one of my favorite necklaces. So he's like, he texted me afterwards, after I get to where I was going, because I had came from school up there with him. So I wasn't even planning on going like back to school until like Monday or whatever. And so now I'm like figuring out what I'm gonna do. And he texted me when I got to my destination, and he was like, make sure you get a plan B. And I was like, you can have a baby with that bitch. And mind y'all, I didn't want to be pregnant while she was pregnant anyways, but I was just upset about the situation. I was just mad because why would you get this? Why would you get her pregnant? How? What? You ain't even supposed to be fooling with this girl. Like, it was a lot. It was a lot. It was a lot. And so that's what made me be like, you know what? Bump him. Forget him. I ain't talking to him no more. I don't want nothing to do with him, even though I still talk to him. Because, y'all, that was my love that I grew up with. Like, we was best friends. Like, we literally grew up together. We was best friends. We went to the same church. And then that's the crazy thing about it, y'all. So after the 6th grade year or whatever, right? I'm thinking I'm never going to see him again. Because he's like, yeah, you know, we moved to Wasso and all this other stuff. And I was like, okay, well, you know, maybe we can talk on the phone or whatever. You know, we can still, you know, keep connected like that, whatever. And he was like, yeah, but, you know, think about how unlikely it is that will even work out, that will happen, y'all, right? And I'm like, yeah, you're right. We can still talk, but this is basically, we were like, this is where our love story ends. We both knew, like, he's going to be around the girls. They're going to get his attention. I'm going to be around other guys. They're going to get my attention. And so we're like, you know, it is what it is. But we can still always be friends because you my dog, you know? And so that summer, I remember, y'all, it's so crazy how it happened. It was in May or June. It was in June. My mom started dating this guy, and he was a minister. And he was like, hey, y'all want to come to church with me or whatever, you know? And so I'm like, yeah, okay. Put on my cutest dress, because I had a bunch of dresses that my principal from middle school or from elementary school had donated to me from her granddaughter. She handed them down to me, and they were really nice, y'all. And I was like, yeah, let me go put on my cutest dress. Yeah, I'm ready to go. I always kept my hair done. That was one thing about me, y'all. When I was younger, I used to be so much into keeping my hair done, my nails done all the time. Like, I always cared about how I looked all the time when I was younger. We was po, baby. But I still cared about how I looked and how I smelled, even back then. And so I went and put my cutest, you know. And we went to church. Y'all, we walk into the church house. First person I lay eyes on, Richard. And I remember thinking, like, oh my God, what are you doing here? And he's locked eyes with me, and I'm sure we both had the same look on our face, like, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. And so, we thought that it was over, that it was the end, but it was not the end, because we end up at the same church. And so that's how we end up staying connected. Even though he went off to high school and he was in Owasso, we still seen each other on Wednesdays, on Saturdays, on Sundays, because of choir practice, Bible study, and church service, you know. And if we had other stuff too that we did with the church, we would see each other doing that. And so we stayed connected for all those years. And it was a beautiful love story. It's one of my favorite ones that I experienced in life. I feel like he taught me so much. He did. Like, and I will say that about any of my great love stories. Y'all will hear me say, even though we had our ups and our downs, because there were things that happened, they're still beautiful. They're still beautiful. Even when my ex, the one I was with for 8 years, it was a lot of bad, but it was still a beautiful love story. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful love story. And so, you know, it was beautiful. It was a beautiful thing. It was a beautiful, you know, and we still stay connected to this day. Even though it ain't on no type of time like that, because he is married, and he's married to one of my old classmates. So, and I would say I have nothing but love and respect for her, but she did my brother dirty. So I'm going to just say this. I got nothing but love and respect for him. And because I got love and respect for him, I will never interfere in his happiness, even though I know it don't matter, y'all. But yeah, so you know what I mean? Because even when the pandemic happened, he was the first person I wanted to check on. Like, I need to check on him and make sure he's okay. He was the first person that came on my mind. Like, and I hadn't spoken to him in years at that point. Condensation on my windshield from my air. I hadn't spoken to him since 2013 when I moved here at that point when the pandemic happened. So that was like 7 years that had went by. I mean, I would check his page and stuff every now and then, and I'm not a check a page type of girl, but for him, he's that one person in this world that I will check his page. I don't check anybody else's page. I ain't checking my mama's, my cousin's, my sister, my brother's ex-best friends. I don't check nobody's pages. I don't even check my daughter's dad's page. I don't check nobody's pages. But I always have kept a tab on him. And every now and then I might wish him a happy birthday. And I'll say, happy birthday, Scoot. You know, but for the most part, I just watch, you know. And then every now and then we'll have a little conversation here or there. But it won't be like nothing disrespectful or anything in that aspect, you know. It's just he's just somebody that I will always love that man. Just because of how deep of roots we have. And I know that he's one of the only people in this world that actually really loved and cared for me that I have met. One of the few. I can probably count on one hand the amount of people that I have encountered in my life that actually love and care for me. And he's one of them. He was the first, actually, that that I can say. Because me and my stepdad, we didn't bond until after, because he would be locked up, he would be in jail, out of jail, in jail, out of jail, and all that. And so and so I remember, and I'm just curious, y'all remember y'all first time? Y'all remember y'all first love? Like, y'all remember y'all first kiss? Like, is it a guy thing? The guys just, it happens early for them? Or, you know, is that just a country thing? Like, I'm really curious, y'all. So, y'all drop it in the comments, because I want to know. Like, is it me? Am I the only one that remember? Because I promise y'all, I remember. And I was even telling the guy, I was like, you know, I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with this man. So, of course, I remember every single thing. I can't even tell you the first time me and my daughter's dad kissed. I can tell you the first time me and my last ex kissed. But the thing is, my daughter's dad was never in love with me. He never really loved me. And so, you know, it is what it is. We were just trying to make something happen based on what everybody else around us said we should do. We were just trying to do what everyone around us said we should do. And that's where a lot of our problems lied to, you know. So, but yeah, I remember, y'all. Like, I remember it all. I'm telling y'all, and even now when I hear this song, Brenda's Got a Baby, and y'all, if y'all could, man, to go back to the times when we didn't have cell phones. I seen a post the other day and they were like, oh, y'all remember when we used to have to wait until after 9? And I'm like, yes, I remember, because Richard had a cell phone. His mom, they had US Cellular. And I remember we used to always have to wait till after 9, but we both supposed to be in bed at 9, so we would sneak. We would sneak be on the phone. Oh, the whole house sleep. I'm in there talking quiet. He talking quiet. And I'm like, yeah, Dad. I remember those were good times. Those were simpler times. Now life is just life and kicking all our butts. But anywho, that brings me to the end of this video, this story time, y'all, for this week. But I'm really curious. I'm like, is that a guy thing? Is that a girl thing? Like, is it more likely for women to remember and guys don't remember? And I mean, I'm just curious. Y'all let me know. But all right, I'll see y'all next week. Bye.